In this video, I have an exclusive gift for you from our last Inner Circle event where one of my clients presented on exactly how he scaled his business from $50K per month to over $200,000 monthly in just less than 6 months. And so this video is just a simple documentation of how in 6 months, Tyler transformed his life from being stressful and him being overworked to him being able to live life on his terms. And so that you can do it as well. In this presentation, Tyler will be detailing exactly how he went from working 60, 70, or even sometimes 80 hours per week to now working 20, maybe 25 hours weekly and 4xing his income. And so this is not a presentation that is just filled with fluff for entertainment purposes where I'm going to ask you to pay me money at the end. But this is a presentation filled with value that will make your bank account look significantly nicer. And so if you dedicate the next hour of your time and actually start to take notes and implement these things in your business, you will make a ton more money. When you finish this video, you should leave with extreme clarity on how you can take your company from $30K per month to $100,000 per month in the next 6 months. And with that being said, let's get right into the presentation.
I'll be talking about my journey since I joined LevelUp. So I just joined September 1st of this past year, which is like crazy to look back on. Where I was when I joined is I have my team up here. Effectively, I was a one-man team. I had 4 texters who would basically push leads through. You all know how that works in launch control. And then I took it to the finish line. So I found out price, timeline, condition, motivation. I set the appointment. I went on the appointment, which our average commute time to get to an appointment is about an hour in my market. I would go on the appointment, I locked up the deals, I did the TC, I did the admin work, I sold the deals, and then I also, when I had time left over, did the CEO work. It was exhausting. So a day in the life was, to be honest with you, miserable. It was brutal. I was working 60, I know Chandler had on the slide 60 hours, really it was like 60 to 80 hours. And I got married last year, October 15th. I joined in September 1st. So while we were engaged, we were moving houses, we were renovating our new primary residence. This was supposed to be like our time to enjoy ourselves before we got married when we were still, prior to getting hitched essentially. And I was stressed out of my mind. It was a tough time in my life. So I got lost in the weeds. Like a lot of us, I feel like when we get into real estate, we have this vision of financial freedom, right? Being able to live life on your terms. Life is short. You want to live your life doing what you want to do. I completely lost the vision of that during this time. I was lost in the weeds, just going deal to deal. The whole idea of financial freedom and being able to live the way I wanted to, I lost the light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't see it anymore. I absolutely hated the work. We had inconsistent revenue, inconsistent deal flow, which stressed the shit out of me. I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to that. And then I call it, I was slinging deals. That's essentially what I was doing. I think I'm really good at talking with sellers. I'm phenomenal on appointments. I was just locking up contracts and slinging deals. I didn't have a business. And some people call it like a high-paying job. I wouldn't even call it that. Like this business had my nuts in a vice grip, essentially. It was brutal. Go ahead to the next slide.
Glad you got him out there.
So then, they're better now. So and now I'm married, so. Yeah, exactly. But so that's when I met Gino and Chandler. So September 1st of last year. And basically came to them and I was like, look, this is where I'm at. This is brutal. This is what I want to do. I see you guys traveling. I see you guys basically living the life that I want to live. And I was like, what do I do to get there? Like, can you help me out? In a 30-minute phone call, we identified 4 main problems. Now, look, I was running this. I hate to even call it running this business because I wasn't really running a business, but I had this business that had an unlimited number of problems, an unlimited number of things I had to improve upon. I could have written a book on the number of things that I had to do. But ultimately, we boiled it down to 4 main things. Because we have, in our businesses, even the most advanced businesses have a bunch of different levers that you can pull. There's always something you can do to improve your business. But the way that you advance your business is not by hitting every single lever. It's by picking and choosing the levers that by pulling it will provide you the most leverage. So what we found is these 4. No KPIs. Ironically, I have leverage up here, but I mean it in a different way. Lack of accountability, and then not using the MLS. And then we'll unpack each of these if you want to go to the next slide. So what's funny is if you're asking yourself, well, if I have all these levers to pull, how do I know which one to pull? It's by looking at your KPIs. It's by looking at your numbers. My dumbass didn't track any numbers at all. When I first talked to Gino and Chandler, I reached out to them, and prior to my call, Chandler said to me in an email, cool, just bring these numbers. And it was like leads, net leads, appointments set, appointments completed, contracts signed, and contracts canceled is what I think it was. And I read that email and I was like, I've got contracts signed, I got revenue. That's all I got. I didn't have anything else. I immediately identified I need to at least be tracking these core KPIs. This gives me the temperature on the acquisition side of my business so that I can take a look at what I call our acquisition funnel. So at the top of the funnel, we've got our leads that we generate. Net leads is once we get our leads on the phone and we qualify them, they become a net lead. We set them to an appointment. We hopefully attend the appointment, make an offer, get the contract signed. And any ones that we get signed that don't ultimately meet closing is contracts canceled. So now I know that I need to track these KPIs. What Gino and Chandler helped me do is establish standards for different ratios within the business. So just because you're tracking the numbers, you need to understand, like, what am I working toward? Like, what should I be aiming at? So these numbers are gonna look different for a lot of you. If you're exclusively doing PPC marketing, which is like a higher cost per lead type lead source, your numbers are gonna look a lot different. But I was doing SMS exclusively, which is the same thing Gino and Chandler were doing. So they said, like, hey, these are the standards that we shoot for. You should do the same, right? So I don't need to read through all of these. You can kind of look through all of them. But basically, what I did moving forward at that point is I tracked all of these numbers and all of these ratios on a weekly basis. And so if our lead to net lead ratio was off, let's say it was below 90%, that means that maybe we're generating too many unqualified leads. Maybe our lead management system is broken. Like, there's something there that we've got to fix. Same thing with net leads to appointment set. Like, if we're not setting enough appointments, that probably means we have an issue with lead management, or the leads are too low quality. We can unpack a million different things, but the beauty of the community that we're in LevelUp is that if, let's say, for example, a ratio that we've always struggled with is appointment set to appointment completed. We have a hard time getting it at 80%. If you identify that one of these ratios is lagging, we have Discord, we have God knows how many weekly calls we have now. You can say, hey, this is the ratio I'm struggling with. Any ideas on how to improve it? The next question is inevitably, well, what does your process look like? You can explain what your process looks like, and then you can get input from however many people we've gotten LevelUp now to be able to increase that. So I would emphasize the need of tracking this stuff, and if one of these ratios is off, definitely ask for help. So started tracking this. Gino and Chandler basically told me, like, look, you can't do lead management, you can't go on the appointments, you can't do the TC admin work, you can't sell the deals and be the CEO. Like, it's just not possible to do all this stuff at scale. So the very first thing I started with, and I might be stealing your thunder here, I know you're gonna go into it later, but basically Chandler was the one that told me to do these exercises. So I literally, from the moment I woke up, and I'm saying, like, brush my teeth, got dressed, all that stuff, tracked all my activity down to 15-minute increments. And so at the end of every single day, I walked around all the time with a notebook next to me. When I was working, I had this notebook, and it was literally every single 15 minutes I wrote down what I was doing. So at the end of the day, you go through each activity and you rank them 1 to 3. 3 being the highest revenue generating activity, 1 being the lowest. Anything that was a 1, immediately see how we can outsource that. Who else can do this job? 2s, ask yourself the same thing. Like, if it's a 2, I would ask, do I enjoy doing it? In that case, I would consider keeping it. If I did not enjoy doing it, I would leverage it out. The 3s, same exact question. So if I enjoy doing it, I would definitely keep it. For example, I view managing my team as like a very high revenue generating activity, and I love to do that. But what I don't love doing is lead management. I think lead management is a pretty good revenue generating activity, but I do not enjoy it. So if it's a 3 and I don't enjoy it, I'll consider outsourcing that as well. You also want to know, and Chandler already mentioned this, but you want to calculate your hourly rate. If you don't know how much your time is worth, I would start there, because whatever activity generates less than your hourly rate is, it naturally makes sense for you to outsource it. If I'm worth $500 an hour, like, why am I going to hop on launch control and send text for somebody that I can pay $4 an hour to do? It doesn't make any sense. I'm losing, whatever that math is, $496 an hour by doing that, right? And then finally here, when people hear leverage and like having to build a team and stuff, like, they naturally think like, I need to go out and hire a bunch of people. That's not always the case. Like, you don't always have to do that. So I mentioned I had 4 texters. My very first move was I took 4 of those texters. One is a beast in launch control. I don't know how he does it, but he's an absolute beast. He replaced the job of all 4 of them. He does the entire texting operation on his own, and our KPIs are phenomenal on launch control. It's crazy. 2 of them are extremely talented at talking to sellers. They live in the Philippines. You would never know. I mean, they're really, really good on the phones. Don't have an accent. They run through the script. I mean, they're great salespeople. So I promoted them to lead management. Promoting those 2 to lead management brought me back about 4 hours a day, about 20 hours a week, essentially, by making that one move that didn't cost me anything, by the way. I was already paying them. So I got 20 hours of my week back every single week, no money out of my pocket at all. The fourth one is probably the most important guy on our team. He's not that great at talking to sellers, to be honest with you, but he's brilliant. He's smarter than me, that's for damn sure. I call him my right-hand man. He runs our marketing. He basically manages our dispo. He's like our team support. He manages all of our VAs, manages our lead management. I mean, he does everything. He probably bought me back another 2 hours a day. So that's another 10 hours. So just by empowering 3 people that I was already paying to do $4 an hour work, I bought back 30 hours a week of my time, which is insane. I didn't have to hire anybody else. So that was pretty awesome. Leverage doesn't always come in the form of people. It can, and a lot of times it does. It's also technology. So we used to use CallRail. A lot of people are probably familiar with CallRail as our phone system. Our lead managers used to average 70 phone calls a day. It's a very, very manual process. You copy and paste the phone number, put it into CallRail, click dial, and go to your next lead. Copy and paste the phone number into CallRail. Like it was a mess, right? We switched over to smartphone, which thankfully that did synchronize with our CRM at the time, which was really nice. It doesn't have to sync with your CRM. It's still incredibly effective. So smartphone has the same capabilities as CallRail. The difference is smartphone has what's called Smart Dialer housed within it, which is its own dialer. So that increased our lead manager's calls from 70 per day to 300 calls per day. What do you think that did for our team? It boosted our appointments from two per lead manager per week to 6 per lead manager per week. So we've got 3 lead managers. So we went from 6 appointments per week to 18 appointments per week. And we close our appointments at about 20 to 25%. I think right now we're at like 22% close ratio. So you can imagine what that's going to do to your top and bottom line by doing that. The other form of technology that we changed was our CRM. So we used to use a CRM that was extremely, extremely manual. Essentially, you would log in. You had a preset number of manual tasks that you had to do every single day. There was no creativity to it. It was super, super slow. Every single click, you had the little spinny circle. I want to blow my brains out just talking about it, but it was brutal. It was brutal. So then we switched. Oh, and it had no KPI tracking really. It was poor KPI tracking. You couldn't really drop the leads into different buckets. It wasn't good for lead labeling. So then we switched over to Close, which I know is Chandler's the one that forced me into it, and I know he talks about it a lot within LevelUp. I couldn't recommend it enough. I know a lot of y'all are on Podio. Podio's great, but I would recommend Close as well. Talk about Close just a little bit. I'm good at some things. Technology is not one of them. I'm very much a simpleton. I'm like a 60-year-old when it comes to technology. Even still, the automations within this CRM are very straightforward. I was able to figure out, so I know everybody in this room can. It has great KPI tracking. The most important thing, I mean, we can, it has autonomy so they can build the list to call. It does have good lead categorization, all that kind of stuff. The most important thing is the ease of management. So every single Wednesday, we do a pipeline review with our acquisition guys. So within Close, I can literally go to their opportunities, filter by whatever bucket they've got it in, whether that's negotiation, hot follow-up, warm follow-up. I can look at their past appointments. It makes for me so easy to make sure that every single lead is being followed up on the way it needs to. I can also set rules within the CRM. So if they do not meet, we have like what we call lead laws. So if you're not following up on, let's say a lead within negotiation that, let's say you go 4 days without calling them or texting them, you lose the lead. It can go to one of the other acquisition managers. Same thing for hot follow-ups. If you go more than a week without talking to them, you lose the lead. It goes to what we call the crack list and everyone can take it. So for us, it created acquisition management almost on autopilot. I hardly spend any time anymore aside from our morning huddles. So that was huge. Go ahead to the next one. Then we had lack of accountability. So I'd never really been in like a management position before, and I knew how important it was to be able to hold people accountable, establish KPIs, standards, all that kind of stuff. I wasn't doing any of it. I would talk to my previous acquisition manager on a daily basis and just hear excuse after excuse why didn't get the contract signed, didn't get MLS access if we got the contract signed. I didn't track his dials, I didn't track his talk time, I didn't track really anything at all. I don't know, man. I was kind of like a doormat, basically. Like I just took whatever excuse they threw at me, which I compare to today. What we've done instead is I sit down with every single member on the team, even my texter. Like I'll sit down with him and I'll ask, what are your goals? Where do you want to be, right? We'll talk about the goals and we'll reverse engineer that. Okay, so if you want that, you need to make this much. In order to make that much, we need to be able to, let's use acquisitions as an example because that's easy. That means you need to make this number of offers per day, right? in order to get that many offers, we need to have this many conversations or this many appointments. We need to have this many dials to get that number of conversations, and we reverse engineer it. So my acquisition guys, they know that, hey, if I want to be able to make 150 grand this year, then I know that I have to get in my $250 a day, or I have to get in my 3 offers, or whatever it is, right? So we have a daily huddle where they know what their daily standard is that's going to lead them to their goals inevitably if they follow them. And if they don't reach the goals, like basically we get on the Zoom call, we review their daily stoplight report, and if they missed one of their standards for the day, I don't say anything. They say, yeah, I screwed up. I missed it this day. It was because of this. It's like, okay, well then if you missed it, like what are we going to do to correct it? So they know, let's say they only got in 50 calls on a Friday. They know they're going to work that Saturday to make up the dials and make up their KPIs and all that kind of stuff. Go ahead to the next slide. So I have, I don't really need to talk through these, but I just included some of our standards here. So like my texter, he sends out 5,000 texts per day. We need a certain amount of texts per lead. Some of this is not on him, like the deliverability rate and the response rate. But what is on him is if one of those fall below that, then he knows to consult me. He knows if we fall below 87% D rate, he's already talking with support. He already chats them. He sends the message to me on Discord with the screenshot, and he keeps me posted on the status. And that happens without my involvement at all. I just read his Discord messages. I don't even reply. The response rate, if it falls, he says, hey, our response rate is low. That could be a function of either the list or the templates. I'm going to go ahead and swap out the templates. If the templates don't work, then we need to try a different list. This is all on him. I don't do any of this. Cold callers, kind of the same thing. If they get less than 220 calls, then it might be an issue with our platform. 3 leads per day. I have a stoplight report with them. If they get less than 3 leads more than 2 days in a row, then they have to have a one-on-one consultation with me. But we're moving away from cold calling, so that's gonna go out the window here soon. But that's what we did. And then next slide. Lead managers. Most important thing that we do here is just 1 appointment per day. If you get at least 1 appointment that day, you're not gonna hear from me. I'm not gonna say anything. But if you don't get that appointment, then I need to see how many calls we made, how many texts we sent, how many conversations and connections that we had. And then acquisition managers, this is the big one. So each of them are supposed to produce 2 contracts per week. What that boils down to is 3 offers per day. If you miss an offer, which is okay, it's going to happen. Let's say you only make 1 offer, or you only make 2 offers that day. That for each offer that you miss in a day, you need to give me 50 calls for each missed offer, or 3 door knocks on pre-foreclosures, or 10 deep dives and reach outs for pre-foreclosures. Does that not make sense to anybody? I know that's kind of wordy. I'll repeat it one more time. So you're supposed to get 3 offers per day. Let's say you only get 1 offer. That means you either owe me 50 calls and 3 door knocks, or 100 calls, or 20 deep dives and reach outs, basically. And so that's kind of how we hit pre-foreclosures in addition to the normal course of our business. And I talked about the daily huddle. I got ahead of myself, but basically our daily huddle with our acquisition managers, listen to call recordings, we review their daily KPI numbers, and we do a role play. We discuss any issues that they have, any appointments they need help pushing to the finish line to get contracts signed. Why this is so important, establishing this accountability, is it revealed to me the need to fire my previous acquisition manager and hire a new one. And you can see the difference that we had. So he used to average 17 grand a month in top line revenue. My new guy averages just shy of 60 grand a month. And then I hired a second new guy that also averages about the same. He's at like 51 grand. So pretty powerful stuff there. Then the 4th piece that we needed to change was dispoing deals on the MLS. Prior to doing this, all I did was wholesale stuff off market to other investors, which resulted in an average deal size of only $10,000 per deal. And then we changed it, started utilizing the MLS. You can see our deal size more than doubled. So we're up to just shy of 24 grand per deal now, which is pretty solid. And then I put up here limiting belief. So this was interesting. When we first joined LevelUp, found out about people dispoing on the MLS, every single contract we got signed, we never got MLS access. The seller never allowed us to get MLS access, ever. And then we got the first one. And the first one went from an $8,000 deal if we were to assign it to an investor to a $26,000 deal. Since that contract, we've never gotten a contract that we haven't had the ability to list on the MLS, which has been a lot. That was back in January that we got the first one that we disposed on the MLS. So from January to today, with averaging 8.6 contracts a month, every single one of them has allowed MLS access.
With that, is that just the verbiage in your contracts, or are you sending out multiple? Do you need So for example, like with innovation where you're putting that on the MLS, like we also send out a POA
Mm-hmm.
as well as like innovation agreement. Are you sending out like all those three, or are you just putting it in your normal contract?
It's in our normal contract. Yeah, we just explain it's a part of our process. Yep. And then we've role played the hell out of it. So, I practice that objection on them all the time. Like if a seller tries to put their foot down and not allow MLS access, how do we work around that? So we role play that probably 3 days a week at least. So putting it all together, prior to joining, it was, I put 60 to 80 hours there per week. That probably wasn't even enough. It was like I would put in 60 to 80 hours and I felt like I did half the work I needed to get done. It was a small deal size. We were grossing 50 grand a month. Now we're grossing over 120 grand a month. And I put 20-hour weeks up there, but I just had a call with Chandler earlier this week. It's like, dude, I don't know, it just feels weird not to work that much. Like it's been a really, really weird change. And we had our first, so we were averaging $50,000 a month top line from September through December. January we had a little bit of a better month, and then February we hit 200 grand in a month, which was our best month ever. Then ever since then we haven't fallen below 100 grand. So that's been pretty incredible, and that was in a really short period of time just by pulling the levers that provide the most leverage, not pulling every single lever. But that's all I got for y'all.
So we're going to do a Q&A, obviously. So anyone who has questions, just raise your hand.
Torrin?
How are you finding these VAs and kind of determining if they're stars?
Make sure you repeat the question on the mic.
Okay, yeah, so how am I finding these VAs and whether or not they're stars? So I first started, actually my first 4 texters were with Riva Global. They do a pretty good job. They're a little bit pricier than most VAs, but I found that they came really good, pre-qualified. And then from that point, strictly referrals. So one of my VAs, he used to work in recruiting in the past. It was just really lucky. So now he handles all of my hiring. So he produces a ton of applications. He pre-qualifies them. He has the first round interview with every single one of them, which he records. And then he narrows it down to his top 5 that he recommends, provides their resume along with the interview recording, and then I go from there. So it's kind of lucky that I found that guy.
But they're quick. So how do you distinguish between appointments complete and offers made?
Yeah, the difference between appointments completed and offers made. So appointment set to appointment completed means we successfully attended the appointment. Like the seller didn't cancel on us or something like that. And then offer made, we just need to make an offer on every single appointment we go on. What I found when I first started tracking this is like I would have acquisition managers that would go on the appointment and for one reason or another, not make an offer, which drove me nuts. So then we set the standard of you make an offer on every single appointment you go on. There's no excuse for that. Like I can't really think of a scenario in which we go on an appointment and it doesn't make sense to make an offer.
Yeah, that's kind of why that was the basis of my question. Like, why wouldn't you make an offer?
And some of them just say like the prospect wasn't very motivated, like it sounded like they were fit for retail. Okay, so are you not going to take a swing? Like it's just that you drove an hour to get to the appointment. Why would you not make an offer? It doesn't make any sense.
What market are you in first? Sorry.
Last question real quick. What does your team look like? How many LMs and AMs right now?
What does my team look like? So, like I said, I've got the 1 texter and then 4 cold callers. I've got 3 lead managers. I got my right-hand man I talked about, and I've got 2 acquisition managers. And then actually next week I'm launching an ad for like a TC/admin/dispo. Real quick first. Go ahead.
What market are you in?
Virginia Beach. Well, it's called Hampton Roads, but it's like the southeastern corner of Virginia.
Yeah. And then the AMs are local and they go to all the appointments in person?
Yes, my AMs are local and they go, well, some of our appointments are virtual, like if the seller lives out of state or whatever, but our de facto is, going in person. Yep.
Nice. How did you find them?
One of them, so how did I find them? So one of them, he was a struggling wholesaler. He was a friend of mine. This is pretty crazy. He ran his own wholesale business for 2 years, and over the course of the 2 years, he made $4,000 collectively over 24 months. In his first quarter as an acquisition manager, he's like, I think he just didn't know how to run a business, but he's a phenomenal guy. Like pure soul, like cares about people, good talker, funny. Like you instantly love him if you talk to him. He made 50 grand in his first quarter as an acquisition manager on our team. So he went from 4 grand over 24 months to 50 grand in 3 months. It's pretty crazy. The other guy, I was trying to hire. I hired on I advertised on all the platforms you can think of. And ironically, I was talking to my mom one time and I was like, I just can't find anybody like worth talking to for this acquisition position. She's like, well, Jennifer's son, is trying to leave like his like sales position and get into real estate. And I was like, Mom, are you kidding me? Like, why didn't you say something? So I would just say, like, when you're looking for something, just make sure you tell everybody about it, because it'll be your own people sometimes. You had a question?
If you don't mind sharing, what's your pay structure for lead managers? And just to confirm, they're both offshore.
Yeah. They're so what's my pay structure for my LMs? They're in the Philippines, and I pay them. They get paid $5 an hour, and then there's a $100 weekly bonus for whoever set. Like, I have like a tier system. So like, if you get 1 point for a phone appointment that's attended. You get 2 points for an in-person appointment that's attended, and you get 5 points for an appointment that turns into a contract.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then is that service based, or is that off Upwork and you brought it in house and trained yourself?
One of them is Riva Global. Two of them are Riva Global, and then one of them was a referral.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then AM, are they commission based only 10, 15%?
My AMs, I pay one 20%, and then I pay one 15% just commission only.
Nice.
Yep.
You say those numbers, that AM numbers?
Yeah, the AMs. So I pay one of them 20% commission only, one of them 15% commission only. Here's the other thing is, like, you might hear 20% and think that's a ton. I actually had a super long conversation with Gino and Chandler on this. At the time that I hired my guy at 20%, I fired my previous acquisition manager, and I was running appointments, which I just don't want to be doing that. I wanted to leverage that out. So to get good talent in the door, I figured it was more important to provide an attractive compensation package, essentially. So you'll hear some people talk about, like, well, I pay my AMs 10%. That might make sense for some people. If you're spending $150,000 a month on marketing and people can expect to gross 80 grand a month, like, that make a lot more sense. At the time, I was grossing 50 grand a month. No one's going to come and work for me and do acquisitions and all this kind of work for $5,000 a month. They're just not. So for me, it made a lot more sense to do 20%. And then once I brought him on and we elevated our gross revenue to 80 to 100 grand a month, the next guy, 15% made a lot more, because now we had a system, now we had processes to where I know he could come in and on day one gross 50 to 60 grand alone on his own work. So then I figured 15% probably makes more for him. And then the guy that I pay 20%, I can empower him, so I can have him manage our sales guys or whatever down the road. But that was the thought process that went in behind it.
I was going to ask, how has hiring good people affected your business?
Oh yeah, it's made a world of difference. So I showed you the difference between my old AM and the new AM I hired. It was 17 grand a month with my old guy, and then now about 60 grand with my new guy. So that made an absolute world of difference. And then my LMs, same thing. I've had LMs in the past that didn't do a great job. My 3 LMs now are absolute rock stars. Like, even though I pay them $5 an hour, which is crazy, like, I think if I launched an ad for 50 or 60 grand a year, I don't think I'd find someone as good as them. And that's because I train with them every single day for 30 minutes to an hour, every single day, Monday through Friday. But I enjoy it. Like, that's what I like to do, is work with my team. First back there.
Just curious, what is your turnover rate with your LMs?
I've only had 2 that haven't panned out. And those 3 that I've got right now, 2 of them have been with me for 2 years, and they used to be texters. And then one of them I just hired 8 months ago. So out of 5 total LMs, I've fired 2.
And the 2 that you let go, did you feel as if you could have done a better job qualifying them ahead of time?
No, not necessarily.
It just didn't work out.
Yeah. I think you're not always going to find, especially when you're hiring VAs for LMs, like an LM position, they're not going to come ready to go. Like, you have to train them a lot, which I don't have a problem with. Like, I truly believe I can take anybody with 0 knowledge and give them everything and implement it and have them up and running within 3 to 6 months effectively. Where I draw the line is if I start to repeat myself. I cannot stand repeating myself. So if I'm going to pour into you for 30 minutes to an hour a day and you don't implement the feedback I give you, it's just not, it won't work out. And so that's what happened with the 2 that I had to let go, is I repeated myself 2 or 3 times and it was just enough.
What do you pay the cold callers?
That's $4 an hour.
Where'd you find them?
Referrals. All of them were referrals. Yep, every single one of them. Yeah, they're in-house. Yep. I highly recommend keeping cold calling in-house. You want to manage the dialer, so you want to take a look at how many calls you're getting connected with, your abandonment percentage, because if you outsource it, if you use a cold calling service, some people do, you don't have control over the dialer, and they're not going to look over it the way that you will. So, I mean, I don't know. I would recommend keeping it in-house for sure.
said you were bringing in 120 a month average. What are you spending on marketing every month to get that?
Marketing is $6,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's just texting?
yeah. Well, 5,000 texts a day. So I have one launch control account. I have one smarter contact account, and then like I have cold calling, but I'm ashamed to admit like I think I started cold calling May 1st. No, it was April 1st, and we've gotten one deal from it. So
Including labor in that?
in $6,000, yeah. So I have one texter, and then I have one launch control account and one smarter contact account, and that's our marketing that produces 120 grand a month. And then I also have pre-foreclosures. So if y'all haven't heard me scream pre-foreclosures from the mountaintop, I don't know what to do to help you, but that's
phenomenal. You're sending out 5,000 a day with one texter.
mhm.
We're at like 1,500 a day with the texter. What's going to make the biggest difference there? Because our quick replies are dialed in.
All right. So
It's not working hard enough?
So the question was like, my texter's only sending 1,500 texts a day, yours is, and then my guy sends 5,000. Probably not working hard enough. I would encourage you to spend a day doing it and see how you can optimize it. So that's what I did with lead management. Like I spent a day doing lead management when my guys were only doing $70 a day or whatever, and I figured out like, okay, here's what I did to optimize it. Like this is what allowed me to make this many calls. We implemented that, and then we haven't had any problems. I'll do the same thing with texting. My guy's just a beast. I don't oversee him that much anymore.
How many hours a day?
He works from 8 to 3. Yeah, he gets off at 3 every day.
Why is it not both on launch control? Why is it launch control and this other one smart?
Smarter contact. So launch control only allows you to send messages to fresh prospects once. If they don't respond, you can send 3 follow-up campaigns, and then you can never text them again. So in my market, I have like a okay size market, 1.7 million people, 450,000 households, which comes out to like a marketable population of roughly 200,000, give or take. 5,000 texts a day over 20 business days exceeds our marketable population in 1 month. Smarter contact allows you to retarget prospects unlimited. And then launch control shuts us down once every 2 weeks.
You could retext them?
Yeah.
The initial text?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And no opt-out language.
What was that called?
Smarter contact.
What are they charging for?
You'll have to look. I think it's like $500 a month, and there's a price per text.
Is that with the like Twilio?
I don't know which carrier they use, to be honest with you.
I tried like REI reply once, but that was.
Yeah. So I like Smarter Contact because I view it almost as insurance. When launch control shuts us down, which is not infrequent, like we have Smarter Contact still running, so our marketing is still producing. And then the whole 120 does not just come from texting. Like we have about, I did it last week, I think it's 7.4x return on texting. But some of this comes from pre-foreclosures. If you're not doing pre-foreclosures, I would start right away. The overhead for pre-foreclosures, I pay $4 an hour to one VA. I pay for like my Zapier automations, which isn't very much. It's like $180 a month. And then we get about 2 or 3 deals a month, and our average profit on pre-foreclosures it's like 25 grand per deal. So you do the math, it's a pretty good ROI.
So I know you said you switched and now like everything is MLS Dispo.
Mhm.
Are you taking anything down or are you doing flips or rentals, or is it everything like boom 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 MLS Dispo?
I take it down if it meets my buy box. So it has to be built after 1950, has to be at least 3 bedrooms, it has to be smaller than 1,800 square feet, and the ARV has to be below 340. And the repairs have to be below 50 grand. And if it meets that buy box, then I'll take it down. If it's outside of that, then I'll just dispo it.
What will you do with it once you take it down?
I bring it to par, what I call par. So like very rarely do I put like top finishes in anything. I hate flipping houses, to be honest with you, I hate it. But like if we need the carpet swapped out, I'll put LVP in there, I'll paint it, I'll put in fresh appliances, but very rarely do I do anything special at all.
And then you resell it, or you keep it as a rental?
I keep some as a rental if I like the area, but lately I've been selling a lot of them. Yeah. I try to keep at least 1 rental per month. So like this year I think I've bought like 9. Like I just try to buy at least 1 per month, and then I'll sell anything above that.
Nice. And then when you keep rentals, is your like tax bill low from keeping rentals?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it depends on the price point of the rentals that you're buying, but like last week. So like again, pre-foreclosures. I was telling. So we did. I'm closing on one next week, It's a $420,000 house, and they're 20 grand behind. So all I have to do is I pay my acquisition manager probably a $5,000 fee on that, catch them up 20 grand. So I'll be into that property for like 30 grand, give or take, and that'll write off a ton on my taxes. And it's in a phenomenal area in Virginia Beach. So it's super powerful going after pre-foreclosures to build your rental portfolio.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Any other questions? You had a whole list here.
I have some questions that I think would be good for everyone. Is one, you put together a lot of steps for how you went from A to Z.
Yeah.
How'd you implement them? Like, well, because it's a lot of shit to do.
I disagree. I don't think it's so like tracking your numbers is extremely easy. Like, so that's something a VA can do, and that's what I started with. Is I had a VA go track how many leads, how many net leads. All I did is I created Loom videos on how to pull each of those numbers, and I had a $4 an hour. Actually, she was a $3 an hour VA. Go and do that. She would put the KPIs together every single week. Then the other piece was leverage. So all I do is I empowered 3 out of 4 of my pre-existing employees. That required some rolling up the sleeves and training, but I would say within a month, I had the 2 LMs up and running autonomously, aside from my 30-minute daily check-in. And then my right-hand man, I mean, he's just, like I said, he's just next level, so he was ready to go immediately. What else did I have? I had no KPIs, I had leverage, I had, MLS Dispo. That took a while because of the limiting belief. So prior to us getting the first contract with the ability to dispo on the MLS, we couldn't get any. All we needed was the one proof of concept. So whether you're running appointments or you have other people running appointments, you've got to instill into yourself or your acquisition people, like, this is possible, people do it. Like I know a ton of people that are doing it. And like I said, since January, we haven't gotten one where we couldn't dispo on the MLS. And then I had accountability, the accountability implemented right away. I set up one-on-one meetings with everybody on my team, figured out, hey, this is my fault. I haven't had this conversation with you prior to this point. It's extremely selfish of me, and I hope you can forgive me. But what I want to do is find out what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and how I can help get you there. Because if I'm not getting you to your goals, then I'm failing as a leader, right? So I figured out what their goals are. We reverse engineered everything. And so that was it's probably a 30-minute Zoom call with each team member.
Yeah. So like a point I want to make on that is like, the only reason that you're able to implement all those things is because the beginning is like you freed your time up.
Mm-hmm.
Like you immediately said, here's 30 extra hours a week that I can just like do whatever needs to be done to build my business. So it's like you work more to work less, but in order to be able to work more on your business, you have to be smarter about what you use your resources on. So that means you need cash so that you can hire people. Then you need to generate cash. Once you have cash, then you can invest in your business the right way and then follow the same process.
Yep.
So whatever your constraint time, like for you it's time. So
Yeah.
you already had the people, you had the time, you had the cash. So now it's just a restructure.
Yeah.
So it's like taking your resources and looking at how can I better allocate this to solve my problem. So that's leverage, and this is a perfect example of exactly how you do it. So.
Absolutely.
Another question. I think this is a big one that we get all the time. Is if your KPIs are off. So let's say, like obviously, with a texter, one like he has his process, but like let's just say your net lead to appointments off. Like what's like your actions? Like what do you do?
Net leads to appointments would intuitively be a lead management problem. So I'll jump in and listen to call recordings right away.
How do you know it's a lead management problem?
That's just the first place I would start.
Yeah.
Like
I guess like how do you like know to start there?
Because those are the people converting net leads to appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's their job to set appointments.
Perfect.
So I would start there and listen to call recordings and go from there.
Mm-hmm. And then whatever, if that looks fine, then move on.
It's almost never a leads problem.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. It's almost never a leads problem. It's always like some sort of tweak we need to make in our script.
Perfect. I like that. And then how did you basically train? Like you trained your texture to do all those things. Like what was that process look like to get him to just go and do those things autonomously?
I didn't, to be honest with you. I didn't. Like, so Riva Global like trains their VAs on launch control. So he came pre-trained, and then he was just excellent at what he did. And so what enabled it to go from me managing to autonomous was tracking his numbers. Yeah. And so like now I just look daily, like, you know, what do his numbers look like? And that's pretty much it.
And the last question is like, for when you reset the expectation with your acquisition guys and early managers, and you tell them like, hey, here's what we need to hit, here's our numbers, what does that conversation look like?
It's not about what we need to hit, it's about what they need to hit. So like my first acquisition manager, you know, he wants to he wants to make 15 grand a month is essentially his goal. Okay, so 15 grand a month at 20% commission means you need to gross whatever that math is. I think that's $75,000 a month, I believe. In order to generate $75,000 a month, our average deal size is $23,000. That means you need to get 3 deals per month, essentially, to successfully close. We have a 25% cancellation rate, which means if you want 3 deals to close, you need to lock up 4 at $25,000 margins. In order to lock up 4 deals, if you're closing at 20%, that means you need to make 20 offers that week. In order to make 20 offers that week, that means you need to go on 20 appointments. We're only attending 70% of the appointments that we set, so that means I don't know this math. This last part I don't know, but you get it. Yeah, you get it.
But basically start with their why and then work back to like what the actual math says.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, like business is just math, and you're just solving for a math problem that makes you that you like. So like if your net profit you want to be 50%, build the math problem, but what net profit looks like to be 50%, and then backfill with resources as in people, technology, processes.
The one thing I left out on that was like figure out their why. Like that's super important. So like if my guy who's trying to make 15 grand a month doesn't hit his offers for a day or his calls or his door knocks or his deep dives or whatever, the conversation the next day, he needs to provide to me like how he's going to make up for it. Or if I get the sense that he's not going to do it or if he's not fully committed or something like that, I bring up his why. So like his why has to do with, you know, his wife and they want to have a kid soon and they want to be able to travel to allow their kid to experience like, you know, different parts of the country and international experiences. So, you know, if he goes, let's say like 2 or 3 days with missing a goal, which I don't think has happened yet, but if he goes 2 or 3 days without missing or while missing one of his lead metrics, then the conversation would just go something like, look, man, I know when we started, it was really important to you to hit this 15 grand a month so that you could have the freedom to take you, your wife, and your future kid traveling. Has that become any less important to you? And so like by tugging on his why, I mean, that's the strongest thing that I can do. It's better than anything I can say. So that's super important as well.
Any other questions, guys?
Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
No, you.
Can you share on like that transition that you went from that to that? Like you said, you were about to get married. I just got engaged, so I kind of like.
Congrats.
Relate. Thank you. I'm just not trying to get slinged by the balls or however.
Something like that.
'Cause I have a VA, but.
Will you make sure you repeat that into the mic?
Yeah, so like basically like Chandler said, I mean, so in that case, I would say most important thing is time, which is the same thing I had, right? So I took a look at my team, like the current team I have, and I asked like, how can I empower these to get more out of them, to produce more for the team, essentially keep revenue the same, but get my time back. So I would look at your current team, you said you had 1 VA, right? Okay, if I have 1 VA, are they at max capacity? If yes, can I afford another VA? If I want to afford another VA, what can I have them do that's going to buy my time back? Maybe that's lead management. Maybe that's more leads. I don't know. That's up to you and what your business looks like. But that's where I would start, is I would take a look at my team. Are they at max capacity? If yes, hire. If no, empower.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Who does the dispo in this system?
Right now, kind of me. Sometimes like I'll have an acquisition manager do it if they're having a slow week, like if they're shy of their 2 contracts, I might throw them a bone and let them do dispo if it's going to be an easy sell. But I'd say oftentimes right now it's me. And like I said, next week I'll be launching the ad for dispo.
Do you compensate them for dispo?
Yeah, so for dispo, I pay them $350 per completed transaction plus a 5% commission.
Of the net profit?
Of the net profit, yeah, exactly. Yep.
I have a quick question. So you chose to switch your CRM from Investor Fuse to Close.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason you didn't go Salesforce, left name?
Salesforce is just expensive, man. It's just expensive. And so I chewed on CRMs for a while. I talked to a ton of people. Podio scared me because it's a little intricate. Like I said, I'm not lying when I say like I'm a simpleton when it comes to technology. I'm serious. So I wanted a simple CRM that still had enough customizations to fit our business. And thankfully, Chandler bit the bullet and jumped into Close before I did. And I kind of just rode his coattails, to be honest.
We're considering a CRM switch
Yeah.
as well.
A little word on CRMs is Salesforce is a bitch to start, to do, and just in general, it sucks. I would know because I built ours out from like scratch pretty much, so it sucks. close is extremely easy, and you can set it up in literally like a few hours. Salesforce took a month, and a lot of painstaking time. So,
What are you paying a month for close?
oh, it's like I think the top program is like $800 a month for 3 users.
But you also have Zapier.
Yeah, Zapier. We pay like $300 a month for
And
Zapier, so
do
it's
you
like
go
$1,200.
Yeah.
Smartphone to that, or is there a direct dial?
Oh yeah, then you have like an integrated phone. I think it's like a cent a minute or like half a cent a minute, and then per text same thing.
I pay.
I don't know. It's probably like $1,500 a month.
Probably, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, we're all in like 1,500, but that replaced.
That's like nothing, and you get good reporting.
Yeah.
For CRM, it's really cheap.
And I was literally just joking with my acquisition guy. I think it was yesterday actually. Like I can't even quantify how much better we are with close than we were investor fees. Like it's ridiculous.
Are you still like for like the KPI master doc that like we get when we sign up a level up? Are you basically, do you have all those KPIs in close, or you still have your separate Excel?
I still have my separate Excel sheet, but close makes it a lot easier to pull the numbers you need. So like my KPI VA, like she does it in a second. She just jumps in close, copies and pastes them into the KPI
So
sheet.
you can actually like build and close like the KPIs on the dashboard.
Because I've already simply, if y'all are familiar with it, and like it only gives me the past week, and then I have to go reach out to backend support to get like the previous.
Yeah, investor fees was very similar, which drove me nuts.
Yeah.
I think historical data is really important
It's reporting, that's the biggest issue I have with it, is just not.
to do so. If you like it, then great. If you don't, that's all right too, I promise. The only thing I do ask is like, is there anyone that might get their feelings hurt if you didn't at least consult them on the decision to sell? Well, yeah, I need to talk to so-and-so. Okay. Is there any chance so-and-so can join us at 2 p.m. today? So like, all we want to do is make sure that there's motivation, all decision makers are there. We don't even ask for the yes or no decision anymore.
Yeah.
We don't even do that.
Awesome.
Yep. Berto.
So you're in the VA market, you live out here, and you say your guys do door to door, right? Something like that?
They door knock some pre-foreclosures, and then they do in-person appointments.
So how's it like training them, you being here and them doing in person over there? Like how's it like training them for you?
The only benefit I would have by still being in person, which I was in person up until, like I was there until May 1st of this year, and I hired both of them before I left. It made no difference at all. Like they each shadowed like 1 or 2 of my appointments. I don't even know that helped, to be honest with you. I still train them every single day. Like every morning at 7 a.m. this time, like we get on an hour-long call and do our morning huddle, which we review the stoplight report, and then we do like really intense role play. Like I'll be really difficult intentionally, listen to call recordings. So I'd say, it hasn't made a difference at all, me being here versus home.
Yeah. So then let's say if you were to onboard like another AM now, and it's like you just send them on appointments, you just tell them to hit the appointments without them shadowing anybody.
I'd probably have them shadow one of the guys. Yeah, I would. But if I didn't have that luxury, I wouldn't stress about it for a second, because I'd role play the shit out of with them, and I'd listen to their call recordings. They'd be ready to go.
You can also build like an SOP for how to run an appointment. Like this is how you start your house.
So I actually do. I'll share it in Discord. We have a really, really good in-person SOP like appointment.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
And I got another question about close, right? You said that the CRM lets you know if someone contacted a lead and then you pass it on to somebody else. But what does it like? How does it know? Like you're like if.
I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, how do we establish our lead laws within the CRM?
Yeah.
And how does the CRM enforce those?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to pull up close and show smart views. So basically, smart views are basically like you go to your entire list of leads and you can apply certain criteria. So like the criteria for those is like lead status equals acquisition manager hot, just as an example. Last time communicated exceeds 7 days, like not within the last 7 days. Then I would save that filter and we call it like the crack list, basically. And so if you have a hot lead that you haven't communicated with in 7 days, it goes to the crack list. They can click on that smart view. So like our team is constantly clicking on the crack list because they're good leads.
Yeah.
And anyone can come in and take them.
Okay.
And so we do that for like hot leads. We do it for negotiations. Like if you haven't talked to a prospect in negotiation for 4 days, it goes there. I think warm leads, we have it set for 14 days, I believe. And so like all of these that you're seeing here, these are all, yeah, you can see. So crack list, Chandler set these filters.
It's basically meaning that we got an incoming call, but we didn't call them back.
Exactly.
So that's what this is. So there's 8 people.
And you can set up smart views for whatever you want. So like we have like pre-foreclosure prospects where like the status is either new or working, meaning we haven't gotten in touch with them yet. We've got, we've got so many, it's not even funny.
Like general rule of thumb for like lead managers, you should only have lead ownership for hot leads, and then the ones that they set to an appointment. Like that, those are their leads. Other than that, like it's free for all. And then if they don't abide by the follow-up rules, and it goes to the crack list, and then they lose it.
Yep.
That's the very basic general like rule.
Yep.
Like from there, like with the filters, like Emilio has a really good list that he does like not modified in the last like 90 days. So it means the lead hasn't been changed in 90 days. So he hasn't talked to them in 90 days. So he calls that list all the time, and it's a really good list for them. So, a couple examples. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I got no beef with Podio right now, right? So it's like, it's cool. Like, I like Podio. But then I hear you guys mention this. Do you guys think it would be worth it for me to transition into close, knowing that, I mean, because obviously you guys might have dabbled in Podio and comparing it. Like, is it worth the, because that's kind of like a...
Until you reach constraints, I would advise you not to switch CRMs, because when you switch CRMs, naturally there's opportunity cost. Yeah. You're going to miss deals and stuff. So if you haven't reached constraints with Podio, I wouldn't recommend switching. Do you disagree?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
There's probably levers that would provide more leverage that you could pull. I'd put it that way.
You should always run your business from the theory of like constraints. So like there's always one thing holding you back, and like don't do anything that's not that constraint.
Yeah.
The only thing you do is that one thing, and that's it. And you don't do anything different until that's fixed.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. What constraints? Well, you had Podio?
No.
We had Podio, yeah.
What constraints you had?
Reporting, load time. Those are the main two. Honestly, like reporting and load time. No clarity on what the hell happened in your business.
Yeah.
And then load time, like I mean, you click on a thing and it takes 10 seconds to load, especially when they have 20 megabit up down speed in like Nicaragua or whatever, and it takes like a minute for something to load. Like, all right, dude, like you made 10 calls a day. Yeah, sorry, my system wasn't working. Okay, come on, bro. Like, what are you doing?